The rancher lived far away from the noise of the city, in a place where mornings began with fresh air and the sound of animals instead of car horns. His land was wide and open, stretching farther than the eye could see. Every day, he woke up before sunrise, worked with his hands, and followed the same routine he had learned from his father. Life was simple, honest, and quiet. People in the nearby town respected him because he never spoke more than needed, never broke his word, and always helped others without expecting anything in return. He was not a man of big dreams or loud plans. He believed life should move slowly, like the seasons. When it was time to work, he worked. When it was time to rest, he rested. He did not complain about loneliness, though many assumed he felt it. In truth, he had learned to be comfortable with himself. The land was his companion, and the animals depended on him. That responsibility gave his life meaning. As the years passed, his parents began to worry. In their eyes, a man's life was not complete without a family. They feared that if they waited too long, he would remain alone forever. Relatives visited often, gently reminding him that time does not stop for anyone. At first, he ignored the topic, but slowly the pressure grew. He respected his parents deeply and did not want to hurt them, so when a distant relative suggested a marriage proposal, he listened instead of refusing. The bride was from the city, a place completely different from his world. She had grown up surrounded by bright lights, tall buildings, and constant movement. Her life was filled with conversations, opinions, and fast decisions. She was used to comfort, fashion, and social gatherings. Marriage, for her, was also something expected by her family. They believed it was time for her to settle down, even if her heart was unsure. When their families arranged the meeting, both agreed out of duty rather than excitement. The rancher traveled to the city, feeling out of place from the moment he arrived. The traffic confused him, the noise tired him, and the speed of life made him feel small. Still, he remained calm, wearing his clean but simple clothes, standing quietly while others spoke for him. The first meeting took place in a formal living room. The bride noticed him immediately. He was tall, strong, and clearly used to physical work. But he spoke little, answering questions with short, polite replies. To her, he seemed distant, almost cold. She wondered if he lacked confidence, or if he simply did not care. Her thoughts moved quickly, judging without fully understanding. The rancher, on the other hand, noticed how easily she spoke. Her words filled the room, and her expressions changed quickly. She smiled often, laughed loudly, and made comments that others seemed to enjoy. He did not dislike her, but he felt unsure. She felt like a storm, while he was used to calm skies. Still, he believed respect mattered more than comfort. Their families talked more than they did. They discussed traditions, responsibilities, and expectations. The bride's family worried about her adjusting to rural life. The rancher's family believed she would learn in time. Both sides focused on practical matters, assuming emotions would follow later. After the meeting, the bride shared her doubts with a close friend. She felt confused. Part of her wanted excitement, romance, and understanding. Another part felt trapped by expectations. She wondered how she would survive in a place with no shopping centers, no social life, and no familiar comforts. Yet, she also felt pressure to agree. Saying no would bring questions, disappointment, and blame. The rancher also reflected that night. Sitting outside under the stars, he thought about the future. He knew marriage would change his quiet life. He feared misunderstandings, but hoped patience would solve them. He believed that kindness and effort could build a strong bond, even if love came slowly. Days passed, and discussions continued between families. Eventually, the decision was made. The marriage would happen. The date was set, and preparations began. Neither the bride nor the rancher stopped the process. Silence, in different ways, became their agreement. The bride began shopping for the wedding. Surrounded by people, she laughed and joked. But deep inside, she felt uneasy. She imagined life after the ceremony and felt unsure if she was ready. To hide her fear, she used humor. She often joked about rural life, not realizing how those words might reflect deeper disrespect. Meanwhile, the rancher prepared in his own way. He repaired parts of his house, cleaned the land, and made space for a new life. He did not talk much about his feelings, but his actions showed seriousness. He wanted to provide a stable home, even if emotions took time to grow. As the wedding day approached, small signs of trouble appeared. The bride made comments about how different everything was compared to her world. Some were light jokes, others carried hidden judgment. The rancher heard them but chose not to respond. He believed conflict before marriage would only make things worse. Relatives noticed the difference between them. Some whispered that the match felt forced. Others believed opposites balance each other. The truth lay somewhere in between. Two people from different worlds were moving forward without truly understanding one another. On the night before the wedding, the bride felt restless. She stared at the ceiling, wondering if she was making the right choice. She thought about respect, partnership, and dignity. Though she did not yet understand how important those words would become. Fear mixed with excitement, creating confusion. The rancher spent that night walking the land one last time as a single man. He touched the soil, checked on the animals, and looked at the sky. He reminded himself that responsibility often comes before comfort. He hoped that honesty and patience would guide him through whatever lay ahead. By morning, everything was set. Guests arrived, music played, and traditions were followed. Smiles filled the air, but beneath them lay uncertainty. Two lives were about to join, not through deep understanding, but through expectation and hope. This was the beginning not of a perfect love story, but of a journey that would test pride, respect, and maturity. What started as a simple agreement was about to reveal hidden truths, and neither of them was fully prepared for what would come next. The wedding day arrived with bright sunlight and loud celebration. From early morning, the ranch was filled with people, music, and movement. Colorful decorations hung from trees and fences, turning the quiet land into a place of joy. Guests traveled from nearby towns and distant cities, curious to see this unusual match between a quiet rancher and a lively city woman. Laughter echoed across the open fields. But beneath the smiles, mixed emotions quietly moved through the crowd. The rancher woke up before everyone else, as he always did. He washed his face with cool water and stood for a moment, breathing deeply. Today was different, yet his heart beat in the same steady way. He dressed carefully, wearing clothes chosen by his family. They were traditional and neat, showing respect for the occasion. As he looked at his reflection, he reminded himself to stay calm and patient, no matter what the day brought. Inside the house, the bride was surrounded by women helping her prepare. They adjusted her outfit, fixed her hair, and gave advice all at once. The room felt crowded and warm. She smiled often, joked with them, and acted confident. But inside, she felt nervous. Her thoughts jumped from one worry to another. Would she fit into this life? Would people accept her? Would she lose herself in a place so different from home? To hide her nervousness, she spoke more than usual. Her words came quickly, sometimes turning into jokes that made others laugh. Some jokes were harmless, but others showed how unfamiliar she was with rural life. People laughed politely, not knowing how to respond. A few older women exchanged quiet looks, sensing that her humor carried a sharp edge. As the ceremony began, guests gathered under a decorated canopy. The air was warm, and the smell of earth mixed with flowers. The rancher stood waiting, hands folded, eyes steady. When the bride appeared, there was a brief silence. She looked beautiful, and for a moment, even the rancher felt a soft sense of hope. He told himself that appearances did not matter as much as effort and respect. During the ceremony, traditions were followed carefully. Words were spoken, blessings were given, and promises were made. The rancher listened closely, taking every word seriously. The bride repeated the same words, though her mind wandered. She wondered how life would change after today. She noticed the simple setting, the open sky, and the lack of luxury she was used to. A small part of her felt uncomfortable, but she pushed the feeling aside. After the ceremony, the celebration grew louder. Music played, food was served, and people began to relax. Guests shared stories, laughed, and congratulated the couple. The rancher moved quietly among them, thanking everyone with polite nods. He was not used to such attention, but he handled it with dignity. The bride, however, became the center of many conversations. Her city style and confident manner drew attention. She spoke freely, comparing things to her old life, often without realizing how her words sounded to others. Some guests found her entertaining, while others felt uneasy. The rancher noticed the reactions, but chose not to say anything. He believed that correcting her in front of others would only cause embarrassment. As the day went on, small moments of discomfort appeared. The bride struggled with certain customs and asked questions that sounded impatient. She laughed when she felt unsure and made comments to cover her confusion. The rancher tried to guide her gently, speaking in a low, calm voice. But their different ways of handling stress became clear. Where he chose silence, she chose words. In the afternoon, both families encouraged the couple to spend some time together away from the crowd. They were led to a quiet area near the house. It was meant to be a peaceful moment, a chance to talk privately for the first time as husband and wife. The rancher stood respectfully, unsure what to say. The bride broke the silence with light conversation, her voice slightly nervous. She looked around, taking in the simple surroundings. The quiet felt heavy to her. She joked again, trying to fill the space. The rancher smiled politely, but did not respond much. He hoped time would teach them how to communicate better. Suddenly, an awkward moment happened. The bride said something loudly without thinking, meant as humor, but it carried the wrong tone. The words traveled farther than she expected. Nearby, people heard and paused. A few laughed out of surprise. Others looked shocked. The rancher felt the words like a sudden cold wind. His face remained calm, but inside, he felt deeply embarrassed. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The bride realized that her words had gone too far. Her smile faded slightly, but pride stopped her from apologizing immediately. She laughed again, trying to turn it into a joke. Some guests joined in, while others looked away, uncomfortable. The rancher said nothing. He lowered his eyes and stepped back. Without creating a scene, he quietly left the area. His silence spoke louder than any argument. People noticed his absence and felt the tension growing. Later, whispers spread through the guests. Some blamed the bride's lack of understanding. Others felt the rancher should have spoken up. The celebration continued, but the joy felt thinner, like a smile hiding pain. The bride began to feel uneasy. The laughter around her sounded distant. She realized that not all humor is harmless, and not all silence means acceptance. A small sense of regret formed in her heart, though she did not fully understand its depth yet. As evening approached, the rancher stood alone near the edge of his land. The sky changed colors, and the noise of the celebration faded behind him. He thought about respect, dignity, and the weight of words. He did not feel anger, only sadness. He wondered if patience alone would be enough to bridge such a wide gap. The bride, surrounded by people, suddenly felt very alone. She searched for the rancher but did not find him. For the first time that day, she felt truly unsure. The wedding had joined two lives, but understanding had not yet joined two hearts. The day ended with rituals and farewells. Guests slowly left, carrying mixed thoughts with them. What should have been a perfect celebration had revealed deep differences. The couple stood at the beginning of a shared life, already facing a challenge they did not expect. This part of their journey showed that words can wound quietly, and silence can carry heavy meaning. What happened that day would not be forgotten easily. It would shape the days ahead, pushing both of them toward a truth they could no longer avoid. Night slowly covered the ranch after the wedding guests had left. The music stopped, the lights dimmed, and the land returned to its natural silence. What remained was a heavy feeling that hung in the air. The house that was once filled with people now felt too quiet. Every sound echoed, making the silence even louder. The rancher sat alone outside, on a wooden bench near the field. He looked toward the dark sky, where stars shone softly. Normally, this view brought him peace, but tonight his heart felt unsettled. He replayed the events of the day in his mind. Not with anger, but with confusion and hurt. He had always believed that respect was the foundation of any bond. Without it, nothing could stand strong. He did not blame the bride fully. He understood that fear often hides behind humor, and that insecurity sometimes speaks louder than intention. Still, the moment had left a deep mark on him. He wondered if she truly understood what dignity meant to him, or if their worlds were simply too far apart. Inside the house, the bride sat on the edge of the bed, her wedding clothes neatly placed aside. The excitement she had expected to feel was missing. Instead, a strange emptiness filled her chest. The laughter from earlier now felt distant and unimportant. Her mind replayed the moment again and again. She remembered the sudden silence, the looks on people's faces, and most of all, the rancher walking away without saying a word. For the first time, she did not try to cover her thoughts with jokes. Alone in the quiet room, she felt exposed to her own behavior. She asked herself why she had spoken that way. She realized that her words were not only careless but also unfair. They came from fear, pride, and a need to feel in control. She stood up and walked slowly through the house, noticing how simple everything was. The walls were plain, the furniture old but clean. Nothing was extra, yet everything had purpose. For the first time, she tried to see the ranch through his eyes. She began to understand how deeply he was connected to this place. The rancher eventually stood and walked toward the barn. The animals sensed his presence and grew calm as he moved among them. This routine grounded him. He remembered his father's words from long ago, saying that a strong person does not react in anger but chooses wisdom instead. Still, wisdom did not remove pain. He wondered what the future would look like. Marriage was meant to be a partnership, not a stage where one person performed while the other stayed silent. He asked himself if silence was always the right choice. That question stayed with him longer than the pain itself. Hours passed before they finally crossed paths again. It was late, and the house was quiet. They met in the hallway, both stopping at the same time. For a moment, neither spoke. The bride looked at him and noticed how tired he seemed. The rancher looked at her and saw uncertainty instead of confidence. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said softly, breaking the silence. Her voice was different now, slower, honest. He listened carefully. "Words don't need intention to cause pain," he replied calmly. "They only need to be spoken." She lowered her eyes. "I was nervous. I use jokes when I don't know what to do." "I didn't think," he nodded. "I understand being nervous. But respect should not disappear when fear appears." Her eyes filled slightly, not with tears, but with realization. No one had ever spoken to her like this, without shouting, without blame, but with clear truth. She felt smaller, not because he made her feel that way, but because she finally saw her own mistake. "I don't know how to live here," she admitted. "Everything is different. I feel like I don't belong." "You don't need to belong today," he said. "Learning takes time, but respect should not take time." That conversation did not solve everything, but it opened a door that had been closed since the beginning. Still, the distance between them remained. Trust, once shaken, does not return quickly. The following days were quiet. The bride tried to help around the house, but she often felt unsure of what to do. She made mistakes and felt embarrassed. In the city, she had always been confident. Here, she felt like a beginner. The rancher noticed her effort but did not praise or criticize her. He believed actions mattered more than words. She struggled with the silence, She was used to conversations, noise, and constant feedback. His calm presence sometimes felt like distance to her. At times, she wanted to speak, joke, or complain, but she stopped herself, remembering how easily words could harm. The rancher, meanwhile, watched carefully. He saw her trying, and that softened something inside him. Still, a wall remained. He needed time to understand whether her effort was real or temporary. One afternoon, a small incident happened that tested them again. The bride misunderstood a simple task and became frustrated. Her voice rose slightly, but she caught herself. Instead of making a joke or blaming the situation, she took a deep breath and asked for help. The rancher paused, surprised. He showed her patiently what to do. That moment felt different. It was quiet, respectful, and honest. For the first time, they worked together without tension. That evening, they shared a simple meal. There was no forced conversation, no jokes, just calm presence. The silence felt lighter than before. The bride realized that not all silence meant rejection. Sometimes, it meant peace. Later that night, she spoke again. "I was afraid you would never forgive me." He looked at her and answered, "Forgiveness is not the problem. Understanding is." "But," she nodded, "I want to learn." Those words stayed with him. Days turned into weeks. The rancher continued his routine, and the bride slowly adapted. She learned when to speak and when to listen. He learned that silence alone could create distance if not balanced with communication. Both were changing, though neither said it out loud. The memory of the wedding day did not disappear, but it slowly lost its sharp edge. It became a lesson instead of a wound. Still, the journey was far from over. This phase of their life was not about love or happiness. It was about growth. It was about realizing that pride can damage bonds, and patience alone is not enough without effort from both sides. They stood at a fragile point, where things could still fall apart or slowly come together. What mattered now was not what had been said in the past, but what would be chosen in the future. Part 3 of their story was about reflection, quiet change, and facing uncomfortable truths. It showed that real life does not change in one moment, but through many small choices made every day. Morning light slowly filled the ranch, bringing with it a quiet sense of continuation. Life did not stop because of confusion or hurt. The animals still needed care. The land still needed attention. And the day still moved forward. The rancher woke early, as always, but something inside him felt different. He was no longer carrying only responsibility. Now, he was also carrying hope mixed with caution. The bride woke later than him. For the first time since arriving, she did not feel the urge to rush or speak immediately. She lay still for a moment, listening to the sounds outside. Birds, footsteps, the soft movement of wind. It was unfamiliar, but no longer frightening. She realized that change did not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes, it arrived quietly. Asking for patience, she got up and prepared herself, choosing simple clothes instead of the ones she used to wear in the city. It was a small choice, but it mattered. When she stepped outside, she saw the rancher working nearby. She hesitated, then walked toward him. "Can I help?" she asked, her voice calm and respectful. He looked up, surprised but not uncomfortable. "Yes," he said simply. They worked side by side. There was no pressure to talk, no need to explain everything. The bride followed his lead, observing more than speaking. When she made a mistake, she corrected it without frustration. The rancher noticed this quiet effort. It told him more than any apology ever could. As days passed, routines formed. They ate meals together, sometimes in silence, sometimes with light conversation. The bride asked questions, not to compare or judge, but to understand. The rancher answered patiently, sharing stories about the land, his childhood, and the values he grew up with. Slowly, the bride began to see him not as a quiet stranger, but as a man shaped by responsibility and restraint. She realized that his silence was not weakness, but strength. He did not need to speak loudly to be heard. His actions spoke for him. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sunset, the bride spoke honestly. "I spent my life trying to stand out," she said. "I thought being noticed meant being strong. But here, I see that strength can also be quiet." He listened carefully. "And I spent my life believing silence solved everything," he replied. "But silence can also create distance." They both smiled slightly. It was the first shared understanding that did not feel forced. Not everything became perfect. There were still misunderstandings. Sometimes the bride missed her old life deeply. Sometimes the rancher felt unsure if she would truly stay committed to this one. But now, instead of hiding these feelings, they spoke about them. The bride began to connect with the people around her. She listened more and joked less. When she used humor, it was gentle and thoughtful. The same people who once felt uncomfortable now began to see her growth. Respect slowly replaced doubt. The rancher also changed. He learned to express appreciation, even if only in small ways. A nod, a few words, a shared moment. These small gestures built trust. The bride noticed and felt encouraged. One day, a visitor from the city arrived, an old friend of the bride. She watched closely as the bride spoke about her life now. There was no complaint, no embarrassment. Instead, she spoke with honesty and balance. That moment confirmed something important for the rancher. She was no longer trying to escape this life. She was choosing it. Later that night, they talked openly about the wedding day for the first time without tension. The bride apologized again. Not out of guilt, but understanding. The rancher accepted it. Not because he had to, but because he saw real change. "That day taught me something," she said. "Words can shape a future, either breaking it or building it." He nodded. "And it taught me that walking away solves nothing unless we return ready to speak." From that point on, they treated their marriage not as a fixed result, but as ongoing work. They learned that love is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes, it grows quietly, through respect, effort, and shared responsibility. Seasons changed. The ranch looked different as time passed, and so did they. The bride grew stronger. Not by changing who she was, but by refining it. The rancher grew more open, learning that leadership also includes emotional honesty. They never claimed to have a perfect story. Their journey began with discomfort and misunderstanding. But what mattered was not the mistake. It was the response to it. In the end, their marriage became a lesson for those around them. A reminder that true partnership is built on dignity, not pride. That humor should never replace empathy. And that growth often begins in the most uncomfortable moments. What started as an arranged decision turned into a conscious choice. Two people from different worlds learned that respect is the bridge between all differences. And on that quiet ranch, under wide skies, they continued forward, not as strangers bound by expectation, but as partners shaped by truth, patience, and earned understanding.